prison, inmates get yard time for just a couple of hours twice a week. Other than showers and meal times, these are their only moments outside.
Speak with the journalist. Please, thank you.
You might be familiar with the 2.3 million figure. 2.3 million is the number of people locked up behind bars in the United States. Now let's look at another figure, 10.6 million. Now imagine prison buses lined up bumper to bumper. 10.6 million people will be enough to fill a line of prison buses all the way from New York City to San Francisco. That is the number of jail admissions in the US each year. Why are so many people locked up? Today, we will be looking into the important issues of mass incarceration and why the US prison system has locked up more people than any other country in the world. Sit back and relax as I tell you about the United States prison system. This is Business Explained. To learn more all about things money, get educated about how to do business, become business savvy, and enjoy more videos like these, subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell, and may you be granted with many, many sweet returns. The problem of mass incarceration in the United States began in the 1970s, when politically motivated punitive policies employing fear and racial discrimination were set into place. The war on drugs and tough on crime trend began with President Nixon, but truly exploded during Ronald Reagan's administration, doubling the prison population from the beginning of his term to when he stepped out of office. From the 6,270,000 prison population at the end of Reagan's administration, we now arrive at 2.3 million. 746,000 of those 2.3 million people are held in local jails. Now let's take a look at another concept. Jail churn. Remember the prison buses lined up bumper to bumper from New York to San Francisco? That is how many people will go to jail in a year. This enormous churn is especially high because most people in jails have not actually been convicted. This is what we call pre-trial detention. A number of these arrests will post bail within hours or days, while the rest are too poor to afford bail and will remain behind bars until their trial. Only a small number have been convicted, generally serving misdemeanors sentenced in under a year. Figures show that at least 1 out of 4 people who go to jail will be arrested again within the same year. These are people often dealing with poverty, mental illness, and substance use disorders. Such people have problems which only get worse with incarceration. These are the numbers. Now, why are they locked up? Are private prisons capitalizing on incarceration as a means of profit? Are there too many people locked up because of minor drug offenses? Or is such a system necessary to maintain peace and order and keep the public safe from dangerous people? In this section, we will try to dispel some myths to put the real issues into perspective. Let's get to it. Myth number 1. Non-violent drug offenders make up the majority of the prison population, and releasing them would put an end to this issue. While it is true that the justice system continues to punish people harshly for nothing more than drug possession, and that drug offenses account for the imprisonment of close to 500,000 people, such offenses only account for 1 out of 5 of the reasons why people are put into jail. Therefore, releasing so-called non-violent offenders would not end mass incarceration. The remaining 80% of the people in prison or jail are locked up for a non-drug related offense, either a more serious or even less serious one. Myth number 2. Private prisons are the root of the issue. While private ownership of prisons is an industry that thrives on high levels of incarceration and a number of issues involving human rights have angered the vast majority, less than 9% of the incarcerated people are actually held in private prisons, which is the reason why the private prison industry is peripheral to and not the root of the issue. It goes much deeper than that. Number 3. Private companies are using prisoners for slave labor, and addressing this issue will end mass incarceration. With the many entanglements within the private prison industry, including exploitation of prisoners, this problem is once again peripheral. While it is important for such issues to be addressed, it will not end mass incarceration. Additionally, prison labor is not the source of most prison jobs. Less than 1% of people in prison are employed by private companies. However, the reality is that prison labor involves compulsory work, forcing people to provide labor for little to no benefits and thereby shifting incarcerated costs to those incarcerated. Myth number 4. People in prison for violent or sexual crimes are too dangerous to be released. Based on data, the tendency of a convicted criminal to re-offend does not support the belief that people who commit violent crimes must be locked up forever to promote public safety. In fact, these pre-received dangerous people have among the least chance to be re-arrested. One factor for this is age. The risk for violence and violent crimes peaks is highest in adolescence and early adulthood but declines with age, continuing to keep these people behind bars way longer than when their risk for violent crimes has declined contributes to the overall large population of people in prison. Myth number 5. Increased capacity for community supervision will lighten the load in jails. Community supervision entails probation, parole, and pre-trial supervision. It may be perceived as a lenient punishment, but the policies and conditions surrounding such provisions are so restrictive that sooner or later, people will fail to keep up, resulting in violence. So while remaining in the community under supervision may seem more favorable than being kept behind bars, the eventual failure of such people to keep in step with all the requirements ends up garnering more violations for probation and parole and results in people being unnecessarily incarcerated for minuscule offenses that could barely be considered a crime. Severe punishment for minor offenses lead to the unnecessary incarceration. Major punishment for minor offenses are a very important driver for overcriminalization and mass incarceration. Addressing such myths helps us focus on the actual issues standing in the way of solving the problem of mass incarceration. Now you may ask, what are the actual problems? A while ago, we talked about the enormous churn in and out of the correctional facilities. This is largely due to the pre-trial detention of those who are too poor to pay for bail, generally contributing to the already large prison population. Which brings us to one of our major drivers for mass incarceration: poverty. Incarcerated persons are disproportionately poor when compared to the rest of the US population, and it is undeniable that those in poverty are most impacted and left behind by the criminal justice system. In fact, poverty is not only a predictor, but an outcome of incarceration, because those who are incarcerated spend much of their time behind bars. They are unable to work for a living, which more often than not means that if they do get out, they won't have that much money to get back to. Let's go back to our 2.3 million figure. It is important to note that our 2.3 million US prison population is just a fraction of those impacted by the broken criminal justice system of the United States. In addition to 2.3 million individuals behind bars, 840,000 are on parole and a shocking 3.6 million are on probation. Those who have completed their sentence will forever carry the burden of a criminal record, and a label that acts as a roadblock to chances of bettering their quality of life, including employment, housing, and education, to name a few. But more than what meets the eye, the impact of mass incarceration is far more extensive, impacting millions of people. How, you may ask? Looking at the statistics, 2.3 million are incarcerated today, 4.9 million are formerly incarcerated. Those ever convicted of a felony, 19 million. 77 million have a criminal record, and 113 million adults, approximately 1/3 of the US population, have an immediate family member who has ever been incarcerated. Poverty is an outcome of incarceration in a sense that a criminal record and time spent behind bars automatically compromises a person economically, creating debt, destroying wealth, and removing opportunities for livelihood. Unsurprisingly, related to poverty is race. With people of color facing much greater rates of poverty, we see an overrepresentation in the prison population. Black Americans, who make up only 13% of the United States population, represent 40% of the prison population. Compared to 1 out of every 17 white boys, 1 out of every 3 black boys, and 1 out of every 6 Latino boys can expect to go to prison in his lifetime, showing the glaring disparity in the demographics of prisoners in the United States, mainly influenced by race and poverty. What are your thoughts on the prison system of the United States? Prior to the serious myth debunking we did today, what did you believe about it? Let me know what you think, and let's talk about it in the comments section below. I will be responding to all of you who comment within the first hour of this video's posting. If you like this video, you should definitely check out my other video called TikTok, Microsoft Acquisition Explained. The short video application TikTok has taken the world by storm, becoming one of the most prominent social media platforms across the globe. Now, thousands of TikTok trends have taken over the internet and have even gotten celebrities to get into them. Do the words renegade, renegade, renegade ring a bell? Recently, there have been talks of Microsoft posing to acquire the social app, and on August 3rd, 2020, news reports of Microsoft itself confirming that it will be acquiring the app came out. What is that going to do? How will that help the app grow more? And why does Microsoft even want TikTok in the first place? Well, it might have to do with the app being one of the hottest apps on the market right now, but it actually goes deeper than that. Learn about all that and more on TikTok Microsoft Acquisition Explained. I'll be seeing you then. Stay tuned, stay educated.